Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hey, my little sweetness. How's my man?
Good, thank God. We had a very good week with videos and all the shorts. It really kind of blew up as to our standard. So,
I'm waiting for Spielberg to call us with the movie offer.
yeah, about that. Yeah, we don't really run Hollywood. We just kind of work in it. One of the questions I wanted to focus on is how do you keep your rebel self alive? Now, as you think about that, I'm going to elaborate. What I mean by rebel self is like when you're a teenager, when you're a young adult, you have to have these canon moments where it's a mistake, it's a problem, it's an issue. You really shouldn't be doing it, but you have to go through it to work through a growth. And the only way to do that is to be a rebel from the system that you were in. You know, I was younger, I was trying to rebel, so to speak, in a way, and started becoming my own self. And I chose different things in my life that, looking back, were canon, but a little regretful. But I don't want to necessarily.
I'm sorry. What do you mean by
I'm trying not to elaborate too much because I'm trying to be discreet.
Can you refer the term?
I am. Oh, you don't know the word canon?
I know canon was in Catholicism is like basic rules of the religion.
Not like that. The definition for canon I'm talking about is it's like it's like the main focal point of your story where you realize that was a shift in your life, that it was a messy situation, but you learned a lot from it and you had to go through it in order to grow. And
I think that's life in general.
I understand, but like you have like key points, and the only way to do that sometimes is maybe to be a little bit of a rebel. But how do you keep the rebel inside you still strong but not so damaging?
In other words, like let me say, like kind of like taking chances, doing things to to bring out the real you.
Yes.
I think just the way he walks down the street, just the way he shuffles up his feet. You know that song?
No, I do not. I don't know what you're talking about.
You want to play it? It's called "He's the Rebel."
Okay.
It was by the Crystals. It was very popular. It was very popular when I was like a preteen. I was like 10 years old. Very popular. It goes, just the way he walks down the street, just the way he shuffles up his feet. He holds his head up high when he goes walking by. He's my guy. When he holds my hand, I'm so proud. 'Cause he's not just one of the crowd. Why is he the one who does the things that they have never done? Just because of that, they say. He's the rebel because he'll never be any good. He's the rebel because he never does what he should. Listen to it sometime.
Thank you for ruining our airtime. My main point I was trying to say was, so what, I guess, rebel moments in your life were important, and how do you keep your rebel self alive?
The rebel. Well, the thing was, I was so rebellious that I had a friend who went away to Drexel and wrote me letters, and he would begin the letters with, "Well, how is Charlene versus the world going?" So in me, I kind of had to tame it, you might say. Maybe that's where I became from, because the people around me were not from. So I rebelled, became from.
Maybe that's an interesting point. How do you feel about that?
Alive. I think also too, like when, like, thank God your father and I deciding to go ahead and have a large family. This was being done at the time when you had the zero population out there, people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we got a and we got a lot of it was done during a time when this was the day where the attitude was, hey, if you can't afford to have kids, then you shouldn't have them, type thing. And we decided that well, the Rebbe came out very much against the use of birth control, except in the most serious of medical conditions, situations, for serious medical reasons. He says, but if you're healthy, you don't have serious medical issues. If the problem is just financial, he says that's no reason to use birth control.
It's funny you say that, actually, because I was speaking to somebody and they told me that their mother wanted to abort them.
Whoa.
And it wasn't anything like, a teenager or, health risk. It was just they didn't want to have a kid at the time and they just wanted to get an abortion.
Oh,
And they went ahead and went to a doctor. And this was back in the day when it was, illegal. And the doctor was like, look, you're a healthy individual. If you really want to go ahead and take your risks with, with this procedure, I know some backyard guy you can go to, but you really shouldn't be doing this. And they talked some sense into his mother, and eventually,
my God.
Yeah, it's wild.
Oh God.
And I think I remember asking you, talking to you, if you knew anybody, like that went through it, and you said no, you didn't know anybody.
What, had an abortion?
Had an abortion, yeah.
I didn't. It didn't come to I didn't think of it then. For some, when you asked me the question, my mind drew a blank.
Okay.
But now that you mentioned it, yeah.
You really
Yeah,
did.
I do. Not at that time, but I found out later.
What do you mean?
Couple people I know who had abortions previously, like years ago, and basically told me about it.
Was it because they were in college and they just didn't want to ruin their life, or they were married and just didn't want to have kids?
One was when she was in college, and in those days, to have a child out of the reason that the majority of women years ago had abortions was because having a child out of wedlock was very, very looked down upon. I mean, you were looked like, people looked at you like trash if you had a child out of wedlock. That was the main reason. It was kind of like to hush it up and sweep it under the rug and, pretend it never happened, type thing, and keep it quiet.
So did
I spoke to this one woman who had one. I was really upset that she did, and she said that she did it because, well, first of all, also she wasn't married, and she said to me, who would have been there to help me? Who would have been there to support me? She really felt, as an unwed mother, that she would be facing it totally alone, and she felt that she couldn't.
How did that make you feel?
It felt pretty bad. It felt pretty bad. Yeah. And just made me feel really, really badly. And some, like I say, it's sad. It's a very, 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 very sad thing to, very, very sad thing to do. And at the cost of sounding political, I keep thinking about what Governor DeSantis said. He says, we're not always born under the most ideal of circumstances, but as human beings, we deserve a chance.
I understand that, but I think there's a statistic that mentions areas that abortion became legal, poverty-stricken areas, the crime rate actually went down. but I'm not so sure with that statistic. I haven't really done a lot of research on it.
Yeah.
But it seemed like, because you have those options, you allow people to not be born into harsher environments that lead to criminal activity. But I don't know.
We don't know about those statistics, and it's it's a whole area, and the purpose of our podcast, I don't think we should go into it.
We won't. No, we won't. It kind of happened.
Yeah.
We kind of fell into it. My main focus was being a rebel.
Being a rebel.
How do you keep being a rebel alive?
How to keep being a rebel alive?
Yes.
How to keep being a rebel alive?
Like how do you stop?
Keeping my inner rebel alive.
I'll elaborate as you think. What I also want to elaborate on is that the idea of, as an adult, you realize rules are important and that you have to follow the rules and you have to listen and obey. Life is easier that way.
A very wise person said that, didn't she?
Yeah, she had another gender.
I remember when I used to let you guys off at school. As you got off the van, I would go, remember, I said, listen and obey. Life is easier that way. Have fun.
And the thing is that, but that takes away from that rebel side of life. So how do you stay that young rebel side as you become an adult and realize more and more the importance of rules?
Do you realize that there's a lot of creativity that can be done within the rules?
So what experience have you had with that idea?
For example, okay, oh gosh, what can I say? I guess just now when I sang over the podcast, when it comes to Kolisha, but it's questionable because some people hold by Kolisha only listening to a live performance, and so me singing over our podcast, that's really not a live performance. It's an electronic representation of what my voice is. So it's not really Kolisha. I would, let me see. Oh, when this whole thing started with October 7th, I hung 2 Israeli flags outside my house to show solidarity with Israel.
Okay.
Also, I did something the month of Elul. We blow the shofar. Last year, I decided to buy a shofar and to actually blow it in my neighborhood. And now when I come home during the month of Elul, as soon as I come home, the first thing I do is I grab the shofar, get up, stand outside my house and blow it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's like the kind of the rebel side of me saying, okay, I'm going to blow the shofar in the middle of my neighborhood to show people, hey, this is Elul, and this is this one teacher today who blows the shofar in our school. This guy has the shofar that's amazing. It's one of those huge ones that makes that big, beautiful, deep sound. And he's Israeli. And he says, we will blow the shofar to frighten our enemies, to scare off our enemies. And he blew the shofar in the school with that in mind. But being Israeli, with the situation, he would feel that way. Like I said, blowing the shofar, like I did, hanging Israeli flags outside my house. I guess when I go out, and I guess in Chabad we have a lot of people really have to get in touch with that rebel side. For instance, like going up to people offering to put on tefillin, going up to people. I always carry a little packet of a Jewish calendar with Shabbos candles on me, with the tea lights, travel tea lights, and I offer them to the women to light Shabbos candles. I'm doing this in a total secular environment. So this is the rebel in me coming up in a positive way to basically spread Yiddishkeit. And sometimes I wonder, when I blow that shofar, we've had some from neighbors in our neighborhood that have moved here recently. And I wondered to myself, how many of them are in their kitchens, like, eating dinner, maybe they're doing something else in their house, and they hear and go, they hear, is that a shofar I hear? Is somebody in the neighborhood blowing a shofar? But like, hey, that's something strange and new.
Okay.
When we first moved down here, very few people. The shul gave out shachmanas, but very few. I didn't notice any of my neighbors giving out shachmanas. And for the first 2 years that your father and I were here, and in Florida, nobody gave out shachmanas, and we didn't. We didn't even think anything of it. Then, after your father passed away, something occurred to me. I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "Why don't I give out shachmanas to the neighbors?" So I decided to make up 12 packages of shachmanas each year and pass them out around the neighborhood. And one of the neighbors told me that when she first moved here, she asked one of the from neighbors around here about giving out shachmanas. And they said, "Oh, here in Florida, no one gives out shachmanas." So she didn't. She goes, and then she said to me, "And when I saw you giving out shachmanas," she said, "I decided I'm going to go back to doing it." And a few of my from neighbors now have mentioned the same thing to me, that now that they saw somebody get the ball rolling, actually give out shachmanas to the neighborhood, they said, they're going to start doing this too.
So that's kind of being a rebel really means just being yourself and being proud of yourself. Maybe when you get older, you become more of a rebel. You become more of yourself because you realize how silly it is to placate to anything else.
Well, there's this woman, Joyce Kaufman, who has this very interesting podcast here on 850 in Florida on radio. Mm-hmm. And she always ends her podcast with, "Remember, be yourself. Everyone else is taken."
It's funny because I was thinking about the podcast and how well it's been doing. And I keep thinking of what Snoop Dogg, the rapper, said. He said, "The only thing you can do is be yourself, because then no one else can copy you." And it's just like, you can't copy yourself.
Clone your DNA.
Even then, technically, you can't. It's only so far.
Yeah.
My other question I wanted to talk about was what did you ever never get to do? Like, you had a dream when you were younger and you always wanted to do it and you just never got around to it.
Be an astronaut. Went out of space.
Did you want to be an astronaut too?
Well, I was thinking about that, but I thought to myself, knowing me, the minute the ship would blast up, I would go, "I changed my mind, get me out of here."
Well, you heard about those two astronauts that are stuck in space right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
They're hearing noises now.
Is it a man or a woman? Is it two men?
It's a man and a woman, I believe.
Oh, my God.
A man and a woman, I believe, that they're stuck. It's going to take till
space station.
It's going to take till 2025, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Well, don't they say? I know. Don't they have? I know they have spaceships that go to the dock with the space station for supplies.
I know that's what they're working with. It's just taking forever.
God. Oh, those poor people. Exactly. I've been following it on the news, but exactly how did it happen?
I don't know. I barely listen to it, to be honest. I just hear bits and pieces in the news and like, "Oh, that's happening. Cool."
I heard about them saying that they're hearing knocking on the space station or something.
Yeah, I heard that too. They're hearing noises and knocking and whatnot. But like,
space aliens.
That's what everyone's saying. Like, "Oh, it's an alien invasion." Like, no, it's just shitty things.
Something. I was listening to this program about there are these kooky. This was in Baltimore, WCBM. You had
you have those crazies.
Hieronymus and company. He's really into space aliens. So he was interviewing this woman who claims that she has seen these space aliens, and here is what they look like, and here are their names. And I felt like calling up and saying, "Why are you giving this crazy woman the time of day on your program?" I mean, okay, yes, a normal, sane individual will say, "Yes, I think there is the possibility. We don't know everything." And there's a very strong possibility, I'm sure, that there are space aliens out there, that there are the places where there might be, intelligent life. But to actually say, "Yes, I've spoken to them. This is what they look like." Come on, either you are crazy or you are pulling a good one on everybody.
Well, it's more entertaining. I mean, there's a reason why people like Candace Owens, who's just spewing a bunch of anti-Semitic rhetoric.
I'm very disappointed in her. I used to be a big fan of hers, and when she started spewing all this anti-Semitic garbage, I said, I couldn't take it. That's it.
Because what happens is that they realize they get more attention when we get anti-Semitic. because when they get anti-Semitic, all these Jews make a big fuss. When the Jews make a big fuss, everyone else pays attention, and everyone else clicks on their link and clicks on their YouTube, goes on their podcast, and listens out of rage or curiosity. And she just had this debate with Shmuel Bateach, and she was talking about how the Lubavitcher Rebbe is a Satanist and a devil worshiper, and has this cabal of Jews planted all over the world in the Chabad houses and things like that. Yeah.
So what did he say? So how did he? How can you debate a person like that?
That's the point I was trying.
You can't even debate it.
You can't have a conversation with a crazy person.
Right. You're going to say, no, it's not true. And they're going to say, yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yeah. You can't even talk to a person like that.
And what's worse is they'll come up with some made up statistics just to go ahead and make a point. And that's really the thing. But let's go back to what we talked about before. What is it you never got around to doing?
Being president of the United States.
What else?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be president of the United States. I never got around to doing. I'm still working on traveling. I would like to travel some more. I really would. I'd really like to do some more traveling. I'd like to. There were two cruises. I'm not a big cruise person. I've never been on a cruise before, but the trips that I've been on, I planned myself, and they turned out one to Barcelona turned out okay. It was a shock to me because I hadn't traveled in so long. The one to Panama was amazing, was terrific because basically because there's a vibrant Jewish life there, and there's so many different things to see. And every day there was like another in Panama. There was like another trip I was able to go on, like in the jungle, especially the Panama Canal. There's the Bio Museum. There's always there's always something, and there's a whole slew of the fantastic kosher restaurants there that are really wonderful. And I found the Chabad house there. The people who run the Chabad house here in Panama, so they are wonderful. I found them very warm and welcoming, and the Shabbaton they had was wonderful. They had a breakfast there, and they had a nice lunch and a shalashudas and a nice Friday night meal. The trip to Barcelona was challenging, but I managed to have a good time anyway, despite the challenges I had. I think this is a constructive criticism, and I emailed the people at the Chabad house there in Barcelona at the one that was near my hotel, which was Mumancia, that I said, hey, you guys could have done a better job. The Shabbaton was really nice. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this, the davening there. But there was no breakfast there. I came there wanting coffee, and there was, I couldn't find any coffee there. Anything, I came there the first day I was there. I came there to put some money in the pushka and tried to get their advice about where is their kosher food. Can you tell me like what things are kosher, what things are not? Because I went over before, because of the EU, they can't put kosher symbols on products in Europe and in England.
Why?
I don't know about England now, because the EU doesn't want any type of religious type symbols on any products. And that would include OU, okay, kosher signs, rabbinic signs like that something's kosher. So what they're doing is they were working, and they probably have now, they were working on a whole list of products that are kosher that you can buy in the stores. And when I came to the office, the people in the office didn't give me, basically hardly even looked at me, almost totally ignored me. I mean, it would have been nice had they been a little more, they could have been more helpful.
I think
put it that way.
Well, I think there's issues in Spain with tourists, and residents are very, very disgruntled with them and don't care to help tourists. So that could be.
But I didn't find that on the street. When I was on the street in Barcelona, I thought the people on the street were very helpful. If they saw a tourist that was lost, they helped them right away. They were nice. They were friendly. I got on the bus one time, and I was fumbling around for my credit card, and I couldn't find it. And I said to the bus driver, I finally found it, and I tried tapping it, and it wasn't working. And I told the bus driver, I'm an American tourist. I'm sorry, I'm trying to. And I said in Spanish, I said that to him, and he smiled at me. He says, "Don't worry about it, just sit down."
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe you were speaking to them in Spanish. Did you speak to other people in Spanish as well, or in English?
Mostly in Spanish, except for the the Russian lady. What happened was I was looking for, I was asking for directions. I came over to start talking in Spanish, and she says to me in broken English with a Russian accent, "I sorry, I don't speak Spanish. I'm from Russia."
Cute. So I guess where would you want to travel next?
There were two cruises I would like to take a cruise to, like a Caribbean cruise to, all the St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. I hear there are some very interesting. I want to take a kosher Jewish cruise. I understand, especially in Jamaica, that there's a synagogue. There are some, synagogue, and there's some old like Jewish neighborhoods and artifacts there. I'd like to see. And the other cruise I wanted to take, I tried to sign up for, was the kosher Alaskan cruise. That is very popular. And the problem was I wanted to sign up for it around Pesach time. I thought there would be plenty of time because the cruise was supposed to be first week in July. I thought that would give me time. And lo and behold, everything was taken except for the most expensive rooms. The $7,000 high-end cabins were the only things that were available.
Wow.
And I'm looking for the cheaper 2001s, or maybe I can get something cheaper in steerage, like my puppy did.
What do you mean your Bubby did in steerage? What do you mean?
Oh, steerage.
No, elaborate on the story with Bubby, please.
Oh, that my Bubby told me that a lot of these boats, a lot of these freight, actually cargo ships, would come to Poland, Russia, whatever, the ports, drop off their cargo, and the crew would figure, why go back to the United States on an empty boat when we can fill it with all these immigrants and put them in the steerage is the bottom, the hull. Yeah, put them down there in the hull. Or have you seen pictures of of immigrants sleeping on the deck? That's what these boats were. These were actual cargo ships. And rather than go back empty, they would offer passage to these Russian and Polish, these foreign immigrants that were trying to get to the United States.
So Bubby was an illegal immigrant.
No, she wasn't illegal. They weren't illegals. They put them on the boat, and they would get to Port of Baltimore, Ellis Island, Philadelphia, where they would get off, and they would be, they would check them. You've seen all the movies and all the documentaries about it. First, they were checked to make sure that they were healthy. They weren't bringing any diseases in, and they had papers. They had to fill out papers that they had sponsors in the United States. My Bubby had cousins that lived in Baltimore. And
Okay.
so they were her sponsors. And so she came over in this, in this boat. Like you see, like the pictures, like you see of them either sleeping in the bottom of the boat in the hull, or sleeping up on the deck.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that. We never talked about that, actually. So
She said, by the way, that the first thing that impressed her when she got off the boat, they didn't have chewing gum in Russia in those days. 1900, and actually she came actually really around 19. It was right before World War I. It was one of the last boats that made it over. So it was like around 1914, 1916, around there.
Okay.
A teenager. And she said when she got off the boat in the United States, she sees people chewing, and she goes, what are people chewing like cows? She compared them to cows, the cattle. What is this? Everyone, what are people doing? Of course, she found out later everybody was chewing gum.
Do you remember any other of your grandparents' first impressions of America?
My Bubby was the only one that told me about that. My father's father didn't speak too much about it. Neither did my mother's father. They didn't talk too much about it. My Bubby talked more about it.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's
Interesting.
fun. Yeah, it's strange. Yeah. Now to come to think of it, it's interesting that they never really talked about it that much.
I mean, I think a lot of people in that generation were just very silent about everything, which is kind of sad because you lose so much, you know.
Mhm.
That's one of the reasons why we're doing this is because, you know, we don't want to be silent, so to speak. We want to kind of talk about your history
Mhm.
and the stories that you have.
I used to like very, very much when my father told me his stories from World War II. And when you kids were little, how he would also tell you stories from, that he experienced during World War II. And I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was like getting in touch with a piece of history, you know, but from the person who experienced it. And I was listening to this talk show psychologist one time, and this woman called. She's upset that her father tells her children about his World War II stories. And the psychologist said, "Oh, I think it's horrible what your father's doing. You ought to keep your kids away from that and make sure he doesn't do that." And I got, what?
Yeah,
Is that psychologist crazy? What's her problem?
that's also
It's
unethical
wonderful
to.
that the father is getting. I mean, I can understand, you know, say a Holocaust survivor. I mean, a lot of Holocaust survivors didn't want their children or grandchildren at a young age exposed to some of the horrible, gory details. Now, as their kids got older, say like late teens, early 20s, then they would open up because now, obviously you're more mature at that age. You can take that kind of information much better. Um, but but the stories that my father had from World War II, I mean, he never saw real horrible action. I mean, he was with the reconnaissance forces that came basically for the cleanup and to basically distribute to bring in the supplies. Basically, he was the peaceful end of the army, of the Air Force actually, that brought in the supplies and that helped with the cleanup afterwards. And yeah, so his stories were like more adventurous, like being in Burma, like the rat that invaded their kitchen.
Oh, the one that was giant and huge.
What happened was, um, every morning when the men would wake up, they would come to the kitchen, and everything was ripped apart. Food was stolen. The kitchen was a total mess. So at first they thought it was like some local tribesmen that didn't want them there. They were purposely doing this. So they put some guy volunteered to be on all night guard duty and to see who was doing this. And like in the middle of the night, they heard his gun go off, and everyone came running out of their tents. And he said, "I found the thief. I shot him. You want to see him?" And they couldn't believe it. It was this 3-foot rat.
Wow. Jeez.
And then the stories about, my father's pet alligator when he was stationed in Louisiana.
Yeah, we've talked about that one. Had almost bit his finger off when we wanted to take that picture that we have. You could see it on the Facebook group that we have. Yeah, so it seems like, I guess, anything you never got to do, you seem to have really mainly been hitting those marks, except for maybe those cruises you want to do in Alaska.
Yeah. I also I wrote down my stories in a notebook, and I tried to record them on tape years ago. And just as we were moving, we were putting everything in the boxes. I found the tape that I put in where I recorded all my stories and songs. Someone had taken it and just ripped it up. I don't know who.
Where the tape got ripped up, it probably got
Yeah.
damaged. Probably got damaged. We
It was sitting there on top of the box.
we can do a sub episode on
We
like a
did. Yeah.
Sunday or something
Mhm.
where you could just say or give over your stories.
Well, yeah, one of the things I want to do also, like I told you, I really want to email you a couple of my stories for you to illustrate, and also for one of your sisters who's also very talented in art to illustrate. Haven't gotten around to that. And I also want to write, God willing, I would really like to write a beginner's music book with instruction using simplified, using the Hasidic melodies that are simplified enough for a beginner. I've done this for my students. I have a lot of beginning piano students, and even some intermittent, how do you say, intermediate.
Intermediate.
No,
Yeah.
intermediate students who are getting advanced now, and they all want to play Hasidic music. And so what I did was, for them, I wrote, I wrote down these Hasidic melodies using right hand and left hand, and maybe like some simplified rhythm that a beginner or someone who's intermediate could easily play. And one of my students said to me, why doesn't somebody write down a whole book, like an instruction book, a beginning instruction book, using, Hasidic music? And I said to her, someone I know very well is working on it. And she goes, someone you're very close to? I said, yes. But I thought I was going to do it this summer and never got around to it, but it's one of my dreams. And I would like to have you or your, like, this, your other sister, like I said, who's very, artistically talented, like, do illustrations like of a Shabbos table and Jewish scenes, and put it into this book of, simplified Hasidic music.
Okay. Awesome.
I mean, I know I've seen some publishers like Faber and Faber who do have a book of Jewish music, simplified Jewish music for beginners, but it's more the secular music, like the Hava Nagila, some of the Hanukkah songs, some of the Purim, better known more secular Purim songs that most people know, but not like Chabad melodies.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you could easily do that, sooner rather than later. Just, I don't know. We could talk about after the podcast. We could elaborate a little more. Was there anything, I guess, you ever thought that Tati never got to do?
Be a millionaire.
Yeah, that's it. You just wanted to be rich. Nothing else. Just being rich. That was his goal. He just wanted to.
But so I want to say, as one of your sisters, we did everything we did everything we could to make sure your kids had, and we've had, we did have help from a lot of help from wonderful members of the community who were really nice, who really helped us along. And I asked one of your older sisters if she ever felt that she lacked for anything, like music lessons, ballet lessons, whatever. And she said no. She said she felt, as a matter of fact, one of your aunts gave her as a birthday present ice skating lessons, like a semester, like a session, like a 6-week set, like a 6-week block of beginning ice skating lessons. And another one of your aunts gave one of your sisters an American Girl doll that she wanted. And so your older sister said to me, no. She said, like the productions they did at Beis Yaakov, the plays they put on, the choirs that she sang in, whatever she did, said she never felt that she really lacked for anything.
Interesting.
Even though we didn't have, a lot of money, she felt that she never really lacked for anything. My parents, I felt they didn't have money either. And I felt one of the things that they should have gone out of their way to do for me was, I always wanted private violin lessons. The violin I learned was through the school, was through the orchestra and classes, you might say, that they gave in the public school. And my teachers in the public school always wanted me to take private. They said, you'd be great with private lessons. You should really take private lessons. And my parents, no. I even found a violin teacher that was willing to go down really far to, in those days, $2.50 a lesson, which today would be maybe, I don't know, what would it be? $12 a lesson?
Something like that.
15, right, which is still a pretty decent price. And even with that, they said no. And well, I felt, if my kid really, honestly and truly wanted lessons so badly like that, it was like a fair laugh. We'll do it. We'll find, or maybe we'll do, if we can't afford one lesson a week, so we'll do one lesson every 2 weeks. And they said no. And so then what happened was, when I was about 14,